Welcome. I'm Barbara Gahn Muller, and you're listening to peacepodcast.org. It's a series that allows you to step into the shoes and to hear from the peace builders, the peacemakers on planet Earth today. Today, we're going to be interviewing Sandy Hinden. Sandy Hinden and I are very old, loving friends. Why? Because he knew Robert Muller before I even knew Robert Muller. Robert Muller was my late husband. Sandy has been, and I call him Sandy, it's Sanford Hinden. He has been a peacemaker his whole life. If you heard what he has done, and if you see the websites he has created, you will begin to see that peace begins sometimes with the art of peace. And that's what I see in Sandy. His latest website is sacredearthcenter.org. And you're listening to peacepodcast.org for healthy living, peace, and happiness. So I begin today by asking Sandy, what motivated you to create this piece of art called sacredearthcenter.org?
Well, I was feeling a lot of grief about what's happening to the earth. I love nature. You know, I started Universal Children's Gardens in the 1970s, and I did a tree project with the United Nations Environment Program. So I worked for the New York City Department of Parks and Recreation, and I just love the earth so much. I'm so connected to the earth. I started gardens all around the world. And so now the young people are feeling tremendous grief. And, you know, you see Joanna Macy's work about the earth. And so there's so many people suffering. Their hearts are feeling so bad about, we're facing possible extinction, and the earth will be okay. And even if humans are gone in 5 million years, the earth may regenerate itself to the place of what it was before the Industrial Revolution, which was only 200 years ago, of 200,000 years of human evolution. In 200 years, we've wrecked the biosphere. So I started that space as a place for people to heal themselves and to continue the work of trying to change the planet.
Well, the website, sacredearthcenter.org, is an absolute artistic masterpiece. Not only is it inviting to look at the earth and the products that the earth created for us and the atmosphere, etc., but it gives us the tools we need to save our planet and to save our earth. You probably heard about the piece of an iceberg that is as big as Antarctica that just chipped off, and we're supposed to get the sea levels to rise 4 feet. We're not talking about things that can be fixed in an instant, right, Tandy?
No, and oh God, I don't know what we're going to do, but we just have to keep working one day at a time and do everything we possibly can. And I don't know how the earth will resolve itself after all of this, but we just have to keep doing what we can. And on the website, there's 3 projects I have there. I have like a series of personal programs that people can heal themselves with, but then there's 3 projects for the earth. The first one is understanding systems, and like young people need to understand systems. So it's a project there that gives them its systems for sustainability. And then the second project is the Earth Solutions Project. It's 30 sub-projects that people can join together and become like a Wikipedia and contribute their solutions to these 30 problems. I got the idea from a World Bank vice president who 20 years ago, he put together 20 problems that needed to be solved in 20 years. And none of those problems have been solved. So like I added 10 more problems. They're kind of parallel to the United Nations programs. They have their goals, United Nations goals. So many of them are similar solutions that are needed, but people can participate through this Wikipedia-like participation system and help solve those problems.
So you're really starting the conversation for people who want to join together to solve these problems.
That's right. And the third is the Commonwealth for Earth and Humanity, which calls for 5% reduction in military spending of each country per year, and then use of that money for Earth sustainability, for Earth care, and for social stabilization, for human development projects, and for infrastructure for the whole world that's sustainable. So there's 3 projects on there that people can learn about.
You remind me so much of my late husband, Robert Muller, who was spent his 40 years at the United Nations. And he never thought any ideas were too big to handle. And he said, look at the progress we've made with the United Nations. And you know, Sandy, we're celebrating the 75th anniversary of the United Nations. And Antonio Gutierrez asked us, who is the Secretary General, to become part of the consultation, to become part of the conversation. And I'm going to share a website, UN75.org. That will allow you to answer the 4 questions that Antonio Gutierrez wants us to answer to be part of the global conversation. So, and I met Sandy because of Robert, because Robert was so passionate about peace, and Sandy was one of his dear friends. And so Sandy continues to work for peace. So, Sandy, if you were to have a magic wand, what would you say is our first most important priority on planet Earth today?
Oh my. Magic wands, huh? Um, I would say honoring the young people and listening to them. Okay, so Greta Thunberg, she's the kind of person who will lead the young people into the future. And she's challenging, what happens is every time she goes to the United Nations, she gets disappointed because the governments, it's not the United Nations' fault, it's the governments of the nations' faults. And they refuse to make commitments to reducing carbon. And so the young people are being thwarted by the governments of the countries, not the United Nations. The United Nations is good, but the nations are bad. And the nations need to step up and stop this fossil fuel nonsense.
Yes.
So the young people are leading. They have the Extinction Rebellion Project. They have the school strikes. And now that I've sent out a call to them through a little meme that I've created, that they need to continue the strikes, continue the disruptions, and they need to now begin boycotts, divestment, and sanctions on all countries that refuse to acknowledge the need to end fossil fuel energy production.
Well, you certainly have hit the nail on the head. It is the young people today that give me the courage to keep going and working for peace. It's the young people today who are so savvy on the internet that they can communicate instantly with each other and bring the power of the people together. Remember when Robert got the award in San Francisco as Global Citizen of the Year? And he said, it's the people who have the power. It's not Russia and it's not the US, it's the people. And Sandy, you're just one of those people who have always encouraged people to become more active and to remember that their voice counts. Use your voice. Don't just wait at home to make sure that somebody else does it and applaud them from your easy chair. No, get out and do something. Today, the grandmothers are meeting down at City Hall in our town to talk about something that they think is necessary for us to move forward and not allow any drilling in our channels. Well, you know, those grandmothers never used to get that busy and active, but now they are. So I think it's the people power that are going to save us. Now, peace begins with each of us, right? And it's
That's right.
an internal process. So
That's right.
how do you keep yourself at peace knowing that there's so much problems on our planet?
Well, that's what the Sacred Earth Center website is for also, because it shows people about meditation and taking care of yourself. And you have to calm down every day and meditate so that, number one, you don't overexcite your mind and you don't become saddened and depressed. So you have compassion for yourself, and you gain that through meditation. Meditation like changes your brain waves into alpha brain waves, and it calms you down and it calms your heart, and you can feel good. And then when you're in that state, ask yourself, your inner wise one, your higher consciousness, your higher self, it a question and quietly listen for an answer. And that inner wisdom, the native people call that the original instructions. It's the Roberto Assagioli, the psychologist, call it the inner wise one, that you have inner wisdom inside you that you can only access if you quiet the mind and empty the mind. So when you quiet and empty the mind, ask your higher power, your higher self, your higher consciousness a question, the wise one within, and quietly listen for an answer. You'll get an answer and then write it down in your journal and then process it further. And you find a way to guide yourself and to restore yourself every single day if you do that.
You're listening to Sandy Hinden. Sandy Hinden is a New Yorker. Not only does he have websites like sacredearthcenter.org, but he works with people, he works with men to help them communicate. And it sounds like his new passion to work with the youth is also going to bring us the kind of peace we need on planet Earth. As I said earlier in a previous podcast, I said that I interviewed 85 peacemakers for the 2016 World Peace Conference. And every one of them, when I asked what does do, does exactly what Sanford Hinden just now said. It begins with me and it starts inside. And then you can be the peace other people need in the moment. And you can be the peace you need. Sandy, I'm going to give you the last word. Would you like to say something to our audience? And I want to thank you for being on. Today's Valentine's Day, and I give you my heart. Thanks, Sandy. And I remember the graphic you made for Robert and me on Valentine's Day.
Yes.
You are the best. Okay, you might want to send that to me because I'm going to put it on the podcast. So the last word from my friend Sandy Hinden.
Is every day take 5 minutes to meditate and calm yourself and love yourself and take care of yourself, and then work with other people, find other healthy, loving people in the community that you can join together with and form a group with, and a group of support for each other, and then find ways to join other organizations in the world to take action, and go to the United Nations. If you ever visit New York, go to find the little meditation room in the United Nations and learn the story of the meditation room from Doc Hammarskjöld, who Robert Muller worked for, and Uthant, who worked for them. And they were both very spiritual people, and they created the UN meditation room. I went to that UN meditation room when I was about 15 years old, and I went back every year to that UN meditation room for many, many years. So find it and find your inner peace and work for the world.
Wow, you're listening to Sanford Hinden, and I'm Barbara Gond Muller, peacepodcast.org. I think that after I have heard Sandy, and he's been on my other podcasts, but after listening to Sandy, it's like it's time for a watch party to take out your computer, to open it up to sacredearthcenter.org and have a conversation with others around this conversation I just had with Sandy. My heart is so full of knowledge and information. Thank you, Sandy, for bringing us peace, happiness, and healthy living.
Thank you, Barbara. I love you. Take care on this wonderful Valentine's Day. And if anybody wants a free copy of 7 Keys to Love, I would be happy to give it to them.
Thank you so much. I was just going to mention that. This is the author of 7 Keys to Love. Now, Sandy, if they would like to get a copy, what's your email?
Send it to info@sanfordhinden.com.
And you do not want to miss this. This took him a long time to figure out what love is. And on Valentine's Day, give this gift to yourself and then give it to the one you love. I'm Barbara Gond Muller, thanking you for listening. Join us every time you need a little encouragement to bring peace into your life and a little happiness to bring health into your life. Thanks again for joining us.